Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Joseph Carrasco.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. As we were talking prior to recording, I live in Texas, so I'm just trying to kind of come back from this winter storm. A lot of my friends up north are kind of making fun of us because it's like, man, we have snow all the time. It's like, yeah, but we have 100-degree weather, so
Yeah.
give us a break.
Yeah, it definitely, both COVID and, disasters like that show us just how much everyone is pretending to know what the heck they're doing.
Right? Yeah, like even then, like I thought I was like ready for like kind of any kind of disaster. I had supplies set aside, and I mean it came in handy, thank God. But I'm glad that I got nothing but canned soups, because with us being without power, I have bags of beans and rice and boxes of fideo, but there's nothing I can do with it with no power. Funny thing about that was, because we were having the rolling power outages, it got to a point where we started getting used to the power cutting on for like 2 or 3 minutes and then cutting back off. So I got to a point where we were taking our soup, putting it in a bowl, leaving it in the microwave, and just waiting for the power to kick on. As soon as it did, we ran to the microwave, hit 2 minutes, and then like right when the soup was hot, the power would go back on.
Nice.
So it was rough. Yeah, it was rough, man. The worst part about it was not being able to take a shower, man. I'm a clean freak when it comes to personal hygiene, and I shower twice a day. And so going 3 or 4 days without a shower really got under my skin. It really bugged me.
Yeah, so listeners, that gives you a time frame of when we're recording, because these usually come out like many months later. So and we'll experience how different the world is by the time that this comes up. It's always so funny to me that when a backlogged episode airs, it's like, oh man, that was then. Like,
I'm starting to find that out too. Like my podcast is mainly just me kind of talking into a mic, and I've slowly started bringing guests on, and I've realized that like even when I try to time it out, like there's just some episodes come out like a month later from when I actually recorded it, and I'm like, oh man, like I got to keep that in mind when talking about certain topics, because it might have already passed by the time I get it out. And the listeners are able to hear it.
Yeah. Only recently.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Oh, you're good. Only recently have I been airing podcasts like post-election. And it's weird, like the tone of conversation before and after. Well, anyways.
Yeah.
Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Joseph Carrasco. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I am a podcaster. I'm a solo musician. Just recently, I started doing pod designs, so that's print on demand. So I make basic like t-shirt designs and sell them online. Me and the wife started doing it's called perler bead art, but I always just call it pixel art. But we started doing that. It's kind of a little bonding thing for me and the wife. Eventually, we're trying to make an inventory so we could eventually make a website and kind of sell those online. We make coasters and stuff like that of famous like nerd culture type stuff, Nintendo and Pokemon and stuff like that. My wife's going to be doing a makeup line here soon, so I told her I'd help her with that. I'm not going to make it. She's making it. She's making all the makeup from scratch. I just told her I'd help her market it, help her with the logo and kind of package things, help send it out and stuff. And then eventually, once I get a bigger place, I also want to start making rugs. Again, kind of going into the whole pop culture, nerd culture type stuff, making like Kirby rugs and stuff like that. I just don't have the space to do it right now, but I'm just kind of an entrepreneur, man. I really don't want to go back to a 9-to-5 job. I've been working hard jobs my entire life. I'm going to be 33 this year, and I started working at 16, and I'm just kind of over working for somebody else's dream, essentially. So I want to start doing stuff for myself. I'm a hard worker, and it just kind of never... In corporate America, if you're not kissing asses and you don't know the right people, it's really hard to kind of move up, at least for me personally. And instead of letting that make me become a jaded individual, I've looked at it the other way of like, you know what? I'm going to stop working for other people's dreams, and I'm going to start putting all my energy and time into my own dreams and try to become something from that. I'm a little late to the party, in my 30s, but, it's never too late to start, I guess.
Yeah. Well, cool. Which of these things do you consider your main focus?
It's funny you asked that because I had a friend ask me that too, because he's trying to get into the entrepreneur game, and he brought that up. He's like, man, you got a lot of, spinning plates, if you will, that you're trying to accomplish here. And he asked me the same thing. What's kind of the main thing that you're pushing? And I would have to say it would be the podcast, but also my music. I feel like they kind of go hand in hand, in the sense that I use the podcast to not only get my voice and my opinion out. But like I said earlier, I'm starting to get guests on, and how I'm getting a lot of the guests is that I'm doing stuff like this. I'm guesting on other podcasts, and because I'm a musician and I have a particular genre that I play in, I look for podcasts as well, to do that, and interview, talking about my band. And kind of trying to get fans that way. And then also doing my podcast. It's called The Cognitive Discourse. We that just talk about anything really. And that's what really kind of drove me to your podcast, was that it's an open forum, a non-judgmental forum. And that's kind of what my podcast is as well. So I also want to do that circuit where I can guest on other people's podcasts, have guests come in, and then just have that open dialogue. It's something I feel like we're missing in society right now. I think we're divided, and everybody has to, even the people that are fence sitters, they're kind of forced to pick a side. And that's it's frustrating. And so I feel like podcasts like this, like your podcast, the podcast that I do, and many other ones that I've been on, kind of take away all of that, and we just get down to the bare bones and say, hey man, let's just have a discussion, let's find some common ground. And at the end of the day, we all have opinions, we all have feelings, and the judgment kind of has to be put aside, and just really find out what somebody's about at their core. So long-winded answer, but I think my podcast is kind of the main focus right now. And then, like I said, my music. And again, with the music and the podcast, both, even though they're my main focus, it's not my focus financially. So I do those things because they're fun. I do them because I enjoy them. The other stuff that I'm doing, that's kind of where I'm trying to bring some money in. I got lucky. My wife, when I decided to do this, I quit my job. Like, I do this 100% full time at the house. And the wife allowed me to do that. She basically told me, when we had our first daughter, I let my wife take a full year off. So I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I only had Sundays off. And I grinded it out to take care of my family. That's what I did as a father, as a husband, as the significant other. That was my job. And so my wife basically told me, hey man, you did that for me. You allowed me to stay home with my daughter. And I know you have a lot of dreams, you have a lot of goals. And I basically put out the plan to her, and she says, if you need to take off and do it, do it. And the great thing about her is that she works from home now too. She always wanted to do at-home job, but I think COVID kind of helped push that a little more forward and accelerated it a little bit more. And so she got a job, and every time she gets an at-home job, she's always looking for that next one that pays more and does everything. And now she found one that she really wants to do. She's getting paid a lot more. So it takes a lot of stress off of me. Financially, we're in a good place to where I can focus on doing this stuff, and money's not an issue of like, well, I need to go back to work and trying to juggle all this stuff at once. So it really does help. So I owe a lot of that to my wife, allowed me to be able to pull this off.
That's awesome. Why did you start a podcast?
I originally started a podcast called Mind at Large with a buddy of mine. And it originally started from me listening to podcasts like Joe Rogan, Your Mom's House podcast, You Made It Weird, a lot of comedian-based podcasts. Joe Rogan being the main one, but it was just, I liked that vibe of, friends just talking. And I had a buddy of mine, shout out to Adam. I grew up with him. I've known him since I was about 12 years old. He was actually my first friend when I came back from California. I lived in California for about 2 years. I'm a Texas boy, but I lived in California for 2 years, came back, and he was the first kid that I met coming back. So he was my first friend back to San Antonio. And so we've always had dialogue growing up. We've always been kind of old souls. Even at a young age, we always were asking the big questions and being philosophical about things. And so, technology finally caught up, and a few years ago, I think it was back in 2000, I want to say 2015, 2016 was when we decided to do our first episode. And it came out of us just sitting in, he would come over about once a week. He'd bring some beers or I'd have some beer. We'd always try to try new beers. So we'd go to like HEB and they have like single beers you can build a 6-pack with. So we'd build a 6-pack. We'd sit at my house and we just try the beers and we just, talk. We just have conversations about a bunch of random stuff about life and where we're going and where we've been and, just reminiscing about different things. And, my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend and she would always be like, what do you guys talk about? Like, y'all are talking for 8 hours every time he comes over. And then on top of that, when you say bye, you walk him to his car and you guys are out there for another 2 or 3 hours before he actually leaves. What are you talking about? And his girlfriend would ask the same thing. And so trying to explain it to somebody, it was like, you know what? I told him one day, I was like, why don't we just do a podcast, man? Like, let's just get some mics, let's record our conversations, and let's just put it out there. And not so much for trying to build an audience, but it's just more for us. Like, the concept of that podcast was something that we were going to record so we could go back 10 years later and listen to the episodes and be like, hey, do we still think that way? Like, how much have we evolved over time? And so that was kind of the main idea behind it. The thing about him is he's more of an introvert. For some reason, I always attract introverts. I'm an extrovert. I'm very loud, outgoing. I'll talk to anybody. I'm that guy you see at a bar that's just like, hey man, what's up? Like, if I see you sitting at the table by yourself, I'm like, hey, come over here, like hang out with us. Like, I'm that guy. And so like my buddy was more kind of like, how do you do that? Like I could never do that. Like, I could never just talk to somebody like a stranger. And so it was a cool dynamic between us. And it's funny because we talked about it. He realized that he surrounds himself around a lot of extroverts, and it's because he looks up to that. He wants to kind of be that way. So he's trying to condition himself that way. So he kind of puts himself in the fire and pushes himself to be like that. But yeah, so that's kind of how that came about, and then we started having guests on it and stuff like that. Ultimately, we just had different ideals after a while, and so I just kind of stepped away. But I still wanted a podcast. I still wanted to do something, and we were still friends. We still talk. I would guest on his podcast still. I just wasn't the co-host anymore. And so I even brought the idea to him. I was like, hey man, I've been thinking about doing my own podcast. Like, what do you think? And he's like, man, if anybody out of my group of friends could pull off talking by themselves in a room, as a podcast, I think you could do it. And so it really kind of gave me that push. I'm like, cool, man, because I look up to Bill Burr. I don't know if you know who Bill Burr is. He's a comedian. He's on The Mandalorian. And he does it. He of course he rants on his. He just kind of goes. He's just Bill Burr the whole time, and I love it. But my buddy was like, "Yeah, man, like I could see you pulling something off like that." But I didn't want to really rant on my podcast. I wanted mine to be a little more of kind of thought provoking, motivational a little bit, but not corny motivational. So I kind of started doing monologues. That's how it kind of first began. I just recorded a few monologues, didn't release them, ran it by him to kind of see how they went. And I did that because how I said my music kind of correlates with the podcast, how they kind of go hand in hand with each other is when I do the monologues, like my opening intro, my outro, on the monologues, I have music playing in the background real softly. All of that's written by me. Like I write it and I put it on there. I know a lot of podcasters use like samples and stuff from websites, copy free music. But me being a musician, I'm like, I want to do all of it. That was the whole point too. It's like, I started out as just a musician. I learned how to mix and master my own music. Then I got in the podcast world and I figured that will also help me learn how to be a better musician, a better composer, a better producer. And then, I also got into video editing and stuff like that. So everything is growth for me. And I basically put stuff out there and I want to go back and look at it, later on 10 years from now and see how I've grown, not only as a podcaster, but as a musician, as an engineer, as an editor, stuff like that. So yeah, I did monologues. I do just normal topics for my full episodes where I just kind of I find something that I have an opinion about, and I try to put it out there as non-biased as possible. So that's kind of that's why I made the podcast. I see a lot of hate in the world, and I want to kind of be the part that's not trying to spread that hate, that kind of separates from it.
Yeah, definitely. When did you first get started in music?
So I started playing when I was 14. I got my first bass when I was 14 years old. It was a long conversation with my mom trying to get that bass, because I've always wanted to be in entertainment my entire life. I feel like most people who want to be in entertainment or who really succeed at it, and I'm kind of pointing my finger at Hollywood there. I think those individuals, if I'm going to generalize a little bit here, I think everybody who wants to be in entertainment has a bit of narcissism in them. A little bit there is a little bit of ego-driven narcissism, I believe. And me myself, I admit that I'm pretty narcissistic. I'm a little egotistical at times. I'm the opposite. When I see people complaining, I don't like my voice on my podcast, I'm like, I love my voice. I don't mind listening to myself. When editing comes, I don't mind it. I listen to myself. I listen to my own music because, hey, at the end of the day, I write music for me. It's my therapy. So I'm writing songs that I want to jam to. So if you hear me jamming my own music in the truck, I don't get embarrassed about it. I love it. So I've always wanted to be in entertainment. I grew up, I'm going to be 33. So Jim Carrey was a big figure when I was a little kid. So I wanted to be like Jim Carrey. I wanted to do comedy movies. And then I got into wrestling. I grew up during the Attitude Era. So like Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Mankind, those are my guys. And I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be into wrestling. And then music, the first bit of music that I separated myself from, because growing up in my house, I have a Mexican household, so I grew up to Tejano music, and my mom listened to a lot of Elvis and like outlaw country type stuff, and so I had all that stuff kind of in my stable growing up, but I latched on to in my early teens to hip hop music. Early 2000s, I was really into a lot of hip hop. And so I, would do beats and kind of, I would try to rap, it was probably really bad if I go back and find those old tapes, but that's kind of where I discovered music. So the first band that I ever heard that was heavy was Cold Chamber. And then I got into Slipknot and Metallica and all that stuff. And so I wanted to play bass and trying to convince my mom. Up to that point, my mom never really had to buy me anything. Those were just like, it was just being a kid. Like, oh, I want to do that. But wanting to be in a band, now I actually physically needed an instrument. And so my mom, it was kind of a hard pill for her to swallow, single parent. At the time, there was a place called Mars Music. No longer there. It's now what we know as Sam Ash. But they were going out of business. And I happened to see it. And I was like, hey, Mom, can we go in there and just look and see if we can find something, fairly reasonable? And she's like, okay, let's go. And mind you, my mom's been my biggest fan. Like, I love my mom to death. She's been my biggest fan in everything I've ever done. So we go in there and we're looking at the basses, and I don't know what I'm looking at. I decided I wanted to play bass. In my thought process, I was like, I'll learn bass first because it seems easier than guitar, And so I found this black bass, didn't know what I was buying, but it was on sale. I think I got it for like $300-400, and took it home, learned on it. Come to find out, it's a Brawley bass. It's a 4-string with active pickups, and I believe one of the guys from Fender had left Fender, and he made this as like a side business. Brawley's no longer around, but so it had a member of Fender that made this line of basses. And to this day, it's probably still my golden boy as far as my instruments are concerned. Anybody and everybody that I've come across that have played this bass, they basically want to buy it from me, or they want to steal it. So it was my road bass. It was when I actually started doing shows and going on tours and stuff. It's the one that I took on the road. So it was a very versatile bass, and I love it. It has boost knobs, so I can boost the treble and the bass on it. And because I like to play more of a stringy, type sound, and I play with a pick a lot. I like that real stringy sound. It allowed me to really kind of dig in and find that tone. But I started at 14. A funny thing, though, is I played bass for about 4 years. And the first band that I ever got into, I didn't even play bass. I ended up playing drums.
Okay.
So I put 4 years into bass, and then I essentially became a drummer in the first band that I was ever in.
Is bass still your primary, like, it's where your heart lies, or do you feel like now that you've done other instruments, and especially with your solo stuff, because I have listened to your music, I mean, you're doing it all, so like which do you think is your foundation?
Bass will always have a place in my heart. I always, I love the bass. I love the low end in general. I really love playing drums, but I feel the drums are the dumbest instrument because they're big, they're heavy, and I don't like carrying them. If drums were easier to get around, I would be more inclined to want to really hone my craft as a drummer. As you see, I have my electric kit behind me. I just got this, and I got this because I haven't played drums in about 8 years, and it's always because I don't have the room to set up. I've been living in apartments for like the past 5 years, so
it's loud.
I finally was able to get it. Yeah, so I was finally able to get a electric kit. I do love playing guitar. I do play. I've realized that I've kind of, in some of the more mellow stuff that I've been writing here lately, I've been using the guitar more as an accent piece. So because I'm very low in heavy, as far as like, I really kind of like to have cool rhythms with the bass and the drums. The guitar has been more of an accent on the melodies. And I've been finding that I really have fun with that. I've really been enjoying that because it forces me to kind of think out of the box. So overall, I like every instrument that I play kind of equally. But if I had to choose a favorite, especially just being in bands, like typically when I try out for a band, if I try out for a band, it's mainly on bass. I'll typically kind of lean towards the bass, just because I'm also 6'1", 240 pounds, so a bass just fits me.
Yeah. I also started on bass, and it's still like whenever I pick up even a guitar, like my hands go to like bass finger position instead of like pick holding position. So yeah, I feel that. Some of the more kind of philosophical musical questions that I like to ask musicians, is there such a thing as bad music?
Short answer, no. I think music is based off preference. I think people get too caught up. And when I would say no, I'm referring towards like the gatekeepers. I'm not a fan of the elites and the gatekeeping of, especially with metal. Me being a metal fan, me being a metal artist, I don't get caught up in the subgenres, because then that's when you kind of get into the gatekeeping, and people are like, "Well, that type of genre sucks, and this one doesn't." Da 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 da. It's like, well, again, it's based off preference. Now, I think that you do need a sense of rhythm to be an artist, yes. Because even songs that people don't quite understand, that we are kind of like controlled chaos. Before I really understood odd time signatures, a lot of that just sounded like noise to me. So if you asked, teenage me that didn't understand that stuff, I tell you that's not music. That's horrible. Like that doesn't even make sense. But if you ask 30-year-old me who understands odd time signatures now, I'd be like, oh no, I get what they're doing. It is controlled chaos. Like, so yeah, I don't think there's a wrong way to play music, especially from an artist. If somebody who's unsure or insecure about what they're writing, the best advice I can give is, hey man, write for yourself. Like, don't worry about what other people are going to think about it. At the end of the day, are you satisfied with it? But at the same time, don't become so much of a perfectionist that it hinders you from releasing it. That's something that I've run into on a local level here. I know a lot of amazing musicians in my city, and a lot of them use the term "I'm a perfectionist" as their reason for why their music hasn't come out yet. And at a point, I'm like, when does your perfectionism just become an excuse for procrastination? Like, when is it enough? Who are you trying to oppress at that point? Because I feel like a lot of the people that I know who are like this, they have a great product. And when you hear it, it's like, dude, the average listener isn't going to hear that little flaw or little mistake that you're like focused on, that you're like hyper focused on. For the most part, like the music that I sent you, dude, that was done with Superior Drummer. I'm not even using an acoustic drum kit. I'm using a program. And an average listener probably won't even know that. Now, somebody like, you're a musician yourself, I see your guitar and amp, so you have a keen ear. More than likely, you picked up on it. But for the most part, again, it allows me to get my point across. It allows me to get my message across musically, and that's why I love technology. And again, that's why I also I get kind of annoyed when people try to gatekeep, and you see it. I did an episode called Tribal Mentality on my podcast, and that kind of covered a multitude of things, but it also covers that as well musically. Like, you also have people, you see division in just recording alone. You know, I record the way I record because of the limited space I have. If I talk to, you know, an old school music nerd who is like, nah, man, you have to record on tape. It's the only way, you know, you get that genuine sound. It's like, yeah, dude, it's a great way to record, but to have that mentality of it's the only way, or, you know, everything else is not up to par, and that's the only superior way to do something, that I don't agree with. There's many tools out there, and basically you just create what you create, man, and have fun doing it. If you're not having fun doing what you're doing, then why are you doing it? And again, if you're doing something and you're constantly questioning if somebody else is going to like it, then why are you doing it? Because you're not doing it for yourself. And then that's when I start questioning, well, what's your ultimate goal? Are you just doing this because you want to make money off of it? Is that your ultimate goal? You know, because then if you can be honest with yourself and say, yeah, like, I'll respect you for that. Like, okay, cool. Well, then let's figure out how we can make you some money, man. You know what I mean? Let's take those avenues to help you make money. But if you want to make a solid product and you want to do something that you can be proud of, then don't let anybody tell you that you're doing it the wrong way. And that comes down to just editing too, man. I've noticed that in my world of podcasting, in the world of messing around in Reaper and trying to mix and master and edit things. There's no one right way to do it. You know, when I was doing my research to figure out how to do it, I learned a lot of my stuff on YouTube, and there's so many different methods, man. There's so many different ways to do things. And, you know, I even got into a debate with a guy on Facebook in a podcast group about that. Somebody had posed a question, and I basically told them like what I use and how I got to where I was at. And this guy made fun of me because I learned how to do my stuff via YouTube. And he, you know, it got to a point where I wasn't trying to be mean to him, but I was basically like, you know, you sound jaded, dude. Like, you're coming out very negative, very upset. You sound like somebody who's pissed off that they spent thousands of dollars in college to learn everything that I learned for free, taking time out of my day to watch off of YouTube, you know? And so it's like, you know, I'm not saying you're wrong. The way you do things is wrong, but you're saying the way I'm doing things are wrong, but it works. You know, I'm putting content out, and I think it's decent quality, you know? So, you know, where's the argument there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, switching gears into the tough questions that kind of make bit depth what bit depth is, starting with, what is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Now, I was thinking about this today because I remember you bringing it up to me in an email. So I was trying to think about it because in all seriousness, religion, thinking back, I didn't think religion really played a huge part in my life. But thinking about it today, I definitely have changed my views on religion as I get older. And I started realizing how family and society kind of impacted the way I used to think about religion. And what I mean by that is, first I'll start off with my mom. My mom, like I said, she's my biggest fan. My mom has always been like my best friend.
Yeah.
When it came to religion, I grew up in a household that didn't push religion. So my mom is a very religious person in her own right. She's always reading her Bible. She prays every morning, prays every night. She has a relationship with God. And because of that, in my household, I knew it was that religion was always there.
Yeah.
I knew that if I had questions, there would be answers for me. But it never interested me. It was just something that my mom did. You know, it was just in the house, you know, and we had crucifixes and stuff in the house. And my family, on the other hand, my family and society tended to put a sour taste in my mouth about religion. And how they did that was that I had an aunt who was very religious and liked to push her views on people. And this was my issue with religion, is that a lot of these types of folks are so religious that it becomes almost like a front to be judgmental. Like they're allowed to get away with being judgmental because they're using religion as their front. That I don't agree with. And, you know, I went through my little goth phase when I was in high school. And I remember it used to really irritate my aunt, because my aunt would always tell my mom, like, why do you let him dress like that? My mom's like, it's just a phase, you know, he'll grow out of it. And I mean, she was right. I'm a dad now. I'm the guy that wears basketball shorts and Crocs and a t-shirt everywhere. You know what I mean? Like if I have to put pants on anymore, I'm just like, do we really have to go? Because I don't want to put pants on, you know? And so, and I just recently got Crocs. I completed my dad uniform about a week ago. But I mean, in a way, she was right. She's like, and I'm still a metalhead at heart. But I do listen to a lot of different type of music, but metal's still there at its core. But my mom was onto something there. My mom basically was saying, look, if I try to tell him this is bad or try to push him away from it, it's just going to push him further into wanting to do it, because he's a teenager. He's going to be rebellious. So my mom got it. My mom understood. My family, not so much. And it got to the point where they would push it on me because of the way I dressed. I was the black sheep of the family. I had long hair. I had piercings all in my face. You know, I wore nail polish on my fingernails, and a lot of times it was Sharpie because I was lazy, and I just put black Sharpie on my nails. You know, and I had the long sleeve shirt with the hole cut in the thumb, and you know, I was that kid. And I remember one time it was Thanksgiving, and we were hosting Thanksgiving at our house. And that same aunt came over for Thanksgiving, and she flat out said, you know, hey, Joseph, why don't you say grace? And I was probably 14, 15 at the time. And, like I said, I'm an old soul. So I basically told my aunt, straight to her face, I was like, hey, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, I don't believe in your religion or you're wrong for what you believe in. If you want to say grace and you want to pray before you eat, then by all means, I'll sit here quietly. I won't eat or anything like that. I'll sit here quietly and let y'all say grace, but I don't want to do it. If someone else will do it, by all means. And so I was trying to be respectful about it. And my aunt just flat out looked at me dead in the face and goes, so what's the matter? You don't believe in God? And my answer was, at this moment, no. And her response was, what's the matter with you? Now that really hurt. It hurt. It struck a chord with me, because this is somebody in my life who, like, she was my aunt, but I called her my nana. She was basically, my grandparents passed away before I was ever born. My family is very old. And so she was like my grandma. I would go to her house when I was a little kid. I'd stay over and she'd fatten me up with, you know, I remember she was that house that had like 7 different kinds of cereals, 13 different kinds of cookies. You know, that was, you know, and every time I went over, she'd say, hey, mijo, you hungry? Like, and even if I told her no, she'd make me tamales and, you know, rice and beans. And so I had a connection with her. And so for her to say that to me, really, it hurt. I got up from the table. I went to my room, and I didn't even come back out. Like, I just stayed in my room. And of course, her and my mom got into it. And so again, it was a fight that didn't need to happen. It was words that were exchanged that didn't need to be exchanged. So again, it put a really sour taste in my mouth about religion. Fast forward a little bit more to now, I'm in my early to mid 20s, and I'm working now. And one of the things that always bugged me was, now it's not just religion. I want to make that clear. It's not just like Christianity and Catholics and Protestants, all that stuff. I'm not, Jews, all that. It's not just them. It's also atheists. I had an issue with them as well. And again, my thing kind of just boils down to live and let live. I'm not going to tell you how to think. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to live my life. But in the same point, if you had a way of thinking and you had a belief, and somebody on the outside came in and tried to trample your beliefs, I would stand up for you. Even if I don't agree with you, I would stand up for your right to think that way. And so, like, same thing with an atheist. I had an atheist that I used to work with, who these two older gentlemen, they were talking about religion, and I believe they were talking about their churches. Like, they one of them was trying to find a new church to go to, and the other one was telling them about his church. And this atheist comes up, and she was a female, and she goes, "Oh, that's cute. You guys still believe in make-believe people?" And that rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like, hey, man, I may not agree with them, but who are you? Why are you like downing them for what they believe? And so I stuck up for them. So it's across the board. It's not just one particular religion that I'm against. So I just wanted to make that clear. But for me, I ran into a lot of Christians throughout my life that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And one of the things that I didn't like about religion was the fear mongering. There's a group out there that like to use God as like a wrathful God. A God that if you don't do what he tells you to do, and you don't live the way he wants you to live, and you don't bow down to him, then you're going to the fiery place. And it always just kind of bugged me. I had a guy in my car one time. I used to work for Mercedes-Benz, and I was a driver there. And one of the things that my mom always had me growing up, always told me, was to separate the two things you don't talk about, people you don't know, is religion and politics. You keep those things separate. That's the old way. It ain't like that no more. Yeah. But that was the old way, and that's the way I grew up. Here I am
deliberately bringing it up.
Yeah, but that's okay, because you're coming from a place where we can have that dialogue. But growing up, I was always told to separate it, because again, it's a touchy subject. You never know who you're talking to and the type of person they are. I don't mind talking about politics and religion. The thing is that there are people who are so close-minded that it's their way or no way. And so I ran into a lot of those people. And, I worked at Mercedes, and there was this guy who got in my car one time. And that's the first thing he got on. As soon as he got in the car, he asked me about religion. And I was like, hey, man, I don't really like to talk about religion. I was like, especially right now I'm working. If we don't see eye to eye, I don't really want that to reflect on my job. I have a family to take care of. And, I respectfully decline trying to go into this conversation. And no, he kept pushing. So he's like, well, I just want to, simple question. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? And I was like, I really don't want to go into this. He's like, well, I just, it's a simple question. Yes or no? He's like, this conversation will never leave the car. So do you believe in Jesus Christ? And I was like, I believe of the entity of a man that was Jesus Christ. Sure. So with that, yeah. And he's like, okay, so then you believe in God. I was like, I believe that there's something that we can't explain that is bigger than us. There's definitely something that created all of this. And I was like, but I'm also open to the lines of evolution. So, I don't have a definite answer. But I do know that as an individual, I have a moral compass. that I live by, and I have a way that I try to be the best I can be, and the best person to not only myself but to people around me. So my belief is that I don't know if there's a God. I'm not going to live my life based on those parameters of what you think I should live my life by. But I do believe that if there is a God, and I have disappointed him, that he forgives me for not truly believing. But it's hard for me to believe something, especially in a book that was written by a human. And he didn't like that answer. He started tearing me a new one. So he's basically, now he's using religion as a fear tactic to scare me into becoming religious. And that just rubbed me the wrong way. And again, I knew he was going to do that. And that's why I didn't want to go into it.
Exactly.
I didn't want to lose my job. So I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. And so he starts telling me, well, if you deny Christ, then, he'll deny you at the gates and this and that. And I'm like, okay, let me pose a question to you then. I was like, you're sitting there telling me that if I deny God and deny Jesus Christ and I don't believe in them, that I'm going to get sent to hell. So everything else in life that I'm doing on a positive side of things is now discredited. Is that what you're saying? And he goes, well, no, what I'm saying is if you don't, I was like, no, I get that. But understand what I'm asking. You're saying that no matter how good of a life I live and how honest and righteous that I am, because I don't believe in a Christ or God, that I'm going to be denied. So you're basically putting me in the same category as a serial killer or a rapist or a child molester. And he got really quiet. And I was like, it's a yes or no question. And he goes, well, again, if you deny Christ, I'm like, so I'll take that as a yes. You're saying that because I don't follow and right here in front of you say that I believe in God, that in your mind, I'm going to the same place that a pedophile would go. And he's just like, well, I mean, I guess if you want to sum it up that easily. I'm like, no, that's basically what you're saying, because you're discrediting everything. I just told you that I'm an honest person. I don't steal. I don't ever try to do something intentionally to harm others. I actually am more of a protector than anything. I was like, you don't know the type of stuff that I've been a part of in my life. I've saved people's lives. I've been there in people's final moments and helped them basically come at ease with the fact that they're going to the other side. I was like, so and I asked him, I said, have you ever been in that position? Have you ever had to do that? Have you ever had to see somebody die in front of you and feel their final breath? I was like, what would you do in those situations? I was like, I think that I've been a very I've been the best that I can be in my life. I haven't done anything extremely negative. You know what I mean? And so meeting individuals like that always put a very sour taste in my mouth. Now, with everything that's going on now we jump to present time. If I'm answering the question now, the way I would answer it is, I'm still not a very religious person, but I have started to build a relationship with God. I have started going along the lines of what my mom does. And I do have conversations with the Lord, and it's a conversation that only me and him are going to know about. I don't ever push my beliefs on anybody. And I'm not the type of person that when you sneeze, I'm not going to go, God bless you, or God bless. I'm not that person. I will give you respect, and I will be friendly to you. And I will, hey, have a nice day. Nice to meet you. I will be respectful. But when it comes to religion, I keep it very close to my heart. And at the end of the day, I feel like when Judgment Day does come, and everybody is going to meet their maker, It doesn't matter what you think about me or what others think about me or the way that you view me because of my religious beliefs, my political beliefs, my musical tastes, whatever it is. At the end of the day, my relationship that I have with God is what's going to matter. And when I do meet him, may he forgive all the questions and all the back and forth dialogue that I had with myself throughout my entire life. And again, because I'm an old soul, and because I'm very philosophical, but I question everything, and it gets on my wife's nerves. I have to question everything. And so religion just falls into that. And because it's such a big thing in our society, it's one of the biggest questions. Now, one of the things I do want to mention is there's a song out there, and I don't know if you've heard it, but for your listeners out there, there's a rapper called Hobson, and he has a song that covers this. And it's called The Ill Mind of Hobson. I want to say it's number 7 because he labels some of these with numbers. So look up Ill Mind 7. I think it's number 7. But he has a song where he's basically having that discussion. He discussed that turmoil. And I think that song might resonate, especially with people that are around my age group. I think that song will definitely resonate with a lot of people. Because I think people battle that a lot. I mean, you have some that they know where they're at religiously, but I think there's a good group that are, again, fence sitters. They're not really knowing which way to lean, because they need proof. And so, I still am part of that group, but I've, with age and with having a family and seeing my kids and just a lot of things that have happened in my life, it's definitely put me in a position where it's like, hey man, there truly is somebody out there who has a plan for you. And things happen I do believe things happen for a reason. And it's allowed me to not become jaded. It's allowed me not to become negative. I try not to bring negativity in my life. I want nothing but positive. And when I mean positivity, not just actions, but thoughts. I feel like if you have negative thoughts, you put that out into the ether and negativity comes back to you. So you want to surround yourself around positive things, people, thoughts. And so I think that all of that has really kind of drove me more into wanting to have a relationship with God. So yeah, sorry, that probably was a super long answer, but that's kind of where I've at and kind of evolved over time with religion.
Yeah. Well, no, the good thing about that is that like you also are answering a lot of my other questions along the way. And so it's like, I'm like looking at my list and being like, oh, that one's good. That one's good. That one's good. So it's all good. Like, and you just make my job easier. That's just what it is.
Cool.
So let's jump to, what do you think humanity is heading towards in the future?
Short answer, chaos. If we cannot find common ground and we continue to let outside entities divide us, I think we are going to ultimately destroy ourselves. I think we're going to be Rome 2.0. But I think that there's a lot of potential to do great things. I think, though, technology has made us weak. And I truly believe that strong men and hard work make life easier. But then when life becomes easier, it makes weak men. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So with society, I feel like there is potential, and a lot of people. Again, this is why the positive of technology is that we're allowed to connect like we are right now. There's a lot of creative things that can come from technology. The negatives are it makes us lazy in the sense of mentally. And I pose this question to you. How many of your friends in your cell phone do you know their numbers by heart?
I know my wife's phone number.
Yeah, see? But back in the day, you had to memorize numbers. And again, it's just, and what I mean by that is like brain power. We're not having to use our brains as much. because technology does it for us. So I think that there are positives and negatives to things. One of the huge positives that I've seen coming out and being in this podcast world has really opened my eyes to it is there are tons of people like yourself who are willing to have these conversations. And I think that allows to awaken the sleeping giant, if you will, in a lot of us. People who are willing to. So let me put it that way, though. There are plenty of people out there who are willing to just be blind and sleep through everything, and they have their beliefs, and they're not going to discuss. It's not up for discussion. And that's where we have extremism, especially in the political world. You have your extreme left and you have your extreme right. The frustrating part is that with both camps, you can't say anything that goes against that camp, or you get labeled as that. If you say one thing that goes against the right, you're labeled as a libtard. If you say something that goes against the left, you're deemed a racist. So it's a very divided society that we're in right now. But podcasts like this allow people who want to have a dialogue, who want to find common ground, who want to get their ideas out, but are willing to change their ideas based off the information that's given, I think is going to help us in the long run. And I think that's what we as a society need to realize, is that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to think one way and with facts presented to you, be like, oh, shit, I was wrong, And I think that's the problem with a lot of people, is that they aren't mature enough to take the accountability of, I was wrong. Hey, man, my bad. I think if people can get to that point and accept that there's a chance you could be wrong, then we could get rid of cognitive dissonance altogether. But a lot of people just don't want to accept it. And I think that's a huge thing. So there's a lot of work for sure. But I think if we have podcasts like yours out there, and more of them are popping up, which is great, I think that that's going to help kind of bridge the gap. And I think if we can get people to stop fighting and start having dialogues that they may not want to have, I think we could eventually in the future see better times. I know I want better times for my kids, man. I feel like I messed up and brought kids into the world at the wrong time. And that might just be a generation thing. I'm sure my mom's generation felt the same way about what was going on at their current time. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a transformation that my kids are going to have to just grow into. And as a parent, my job is to make sure that I raise kids who understand that respect is earned, not given. My generation has a bad habit of being like, you're going to respect me. Well, what have you done to earn that? And I think that's destroying our society as well. When anybody I come across, anybody I meet out in the wild, I automatically give you respect because I want respect in return. The moment you disrespect me, I take that respect away, and you have to work like hell to get it back. So yeah, I think that it's a mindset. We need to change our mindset, and I think we'd be doing a lot better.
Definitely.
And that's just an honest opinion of mine.
Yeah. Going more a positive direction, what makes you content?
Music. Writing music, composing music, my kids. I never truly felt love in my heart until my kiddos were born. Going to work, and like I said, when I was working 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, it was rough. But coming home, walking through the door and having my daughter, when at the time she was like 2, running up to me going, "Daddy," and giving me the biggest hug that a 2-year-old can give. Sitting down on the couch, watching cartoons with her, while the wife made dinner, that was my happy place, you know, and it still is. Financially, I've hit some rough bumps, and it's taken a toll on me, age wise. It's aged me quicker than I'd like to look, but yeah, the little things, man, the little things really do make me content at life. Being able to know that I have the ability to take my thoughts and put them into a musical forum and create something, that being able to create something out of nothing means the world to me. And I definitely don't take it for granted, for sure. So yeah, that, and then having kids, and now having my kids wanting to learn all that stuff, you know, them taking an interest in music, them taking an interest in anything that I like. I mean, I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I like Magic the Gathering. I'm a nerd at heart, man, you know? And so them taking that interest, you know, my kid discovered Sonic on her own. She loves Sonic the Hedgehog. And so like that type of stuff, just, it warms my heart, and it makes me, it's the positive outlook on a very negative world.
Yeah, definitely. What advice do you have for people in general?
Live your life, man. Live your life. You know, don't, and it's not just advice for people. It's advice that I have to give myself every day, to stay motivated. I'm a procrastinator, like most people. And so trying to stay motivated is very difficult. Trying to, you know, again, COVID really messed a lot of things up. Being inside, being confined. If you're listening to this and you've been confined for a long time, I know it's hard. I know it's rough. Mentally, it's draining. It can really wear you down as a human being. But just live life. Do the best you can. Every day, try to be better than you were yesterday. And like I said earlier, do not let people tell you what you're doing is wrong. One of the things that I've learned in doing this podcast and doing music is that, and this isn't going to be the same for everybody. Everybody's going to have a different experience with this. But for the majority of you guys, don't rely on your family. Don't rely on your friends to help you get your dream out there. They're not going to understand your overall big picture of what you're trying to achieve. But also, don't forget the ones that stand by your side when you're a nobody. But understand that when you do start making waves and you start becoming successful, the people that are going to call you a sellout, the people who are going to say, "Man, you've changed. You're not the same. Like you've let this get to your head." Those are the same people that were rooting for you to fail. Keep that in mind. Because the people that were with you from the start, they're going to be with you when you're successful. They're the ones that are going to continually see your growth and go, "Hey, man, right on." They're going to cheer you on. The people who are going to become your haters are the people that were already your haters, man. They already were doubting you. Self-doubt is a huge problem as well. You're gonna have self-doubt in yourself a lot, but you got to just keep going, man. You got to set small goals to reach your ultimate goal. That's the best thing that I can say to not overwhelm yourself. Find out what your ultimate goal is. Set small goals to help you get to that big goal. And one of the things that I try to do in my everyday life is, again, make schedules. Schedules really work. You know, that's one of the reasons why I felt really bad. I was supposed to do this with you a couple weeks ago with the power thing. You know, we're here now, but that was one of the things that, like, I felt bad because, again, when you're building relationships with people, make sure that you're willing to see that relationship through. That's another thing that I've been seeing in the podcast world, and you're going to see it in the music industry. You're going to see it across the board in anything that you want to do. There are people who they're flaky. You're just going to run into flaky people. Don't let it get to you. It's just part of that machine. but don't become one of those people. If you're going to commit to something, stay committed. Even if you don't want to do it, stay committed. You made a deal with somebody, and somebody else is relying on you to come through. So that's one of the things that I have noticed, and I've had that with guests too, where I've had guests that, like, they'll say they'll want to do something, and we set a time, we set a date, and then there are no shows. Again, I don't know if they got cold feet or life's kind of crazy right now. So I give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's, again, I want to give you a big thank you for doing that for me. You gave me the benefit of the doubt, and you were willing to reschedule with me. Although had you been like, hey, you missed your mark, sorry, I'm going to move on to the next guest, I would have completely understood, and I would respected you for that, so there would have been no sour taste in my mouth for that at all. Cause it, again, you weren't able to get a hold of me. So, but yeah, if anybody's trying to start something, just go for it, man. Don't look back. Don't rely on other people, man. That's one of the things that I found out in my life doing this stuff. Do not rely on people. If you're going to go in as a partner with somebody, make sure that that you can do it without them if need be. That was one of the things that I've learned. I've done partnerships with people, and they don't really work out. Typically, even when you think, hey man, we're on the same wavelength and this is going to work. And again, I'm not talking to everybody when I say that. You may have a partner and it may work great and awesome, but it's slim pickings out there, man. So know that whatever you're going to get into, it's cool to have a partner. But if you do have a partner, know in your mind, back of your mind, can I do this on my own? Like, do I really need them? And that way, that if you lose them, it's not going to hurt you mentally. You're like, I got this. I can continue doing what I need to do. But know that there are a lot of obstacles. You're going to have a lot of challenges. But at the end of the day, you still want to have fun. The moment that it's not fun, then maybe reevaluate what it is that you're doing. Don't chase the numbers as much either.
Last question, potentially most importantly, cake or pie?
Oh, man. If I'm going, you know what, man, I would have to say clear cut. It'd probably be pie, man, because cake is good. My wife makes really good homemade cake, but honestly, are we counting brownies as cake? Because brownies, I like brownies more than I like cake.
Brownies, I would consider, and the amount of times that I've had this conversation, brownies fall under cake.
Okay. Well, okay, so now we're going to go with, I do like brownies, and if I had to pick a cake, a nice warm carrot cake is good. My problem with cake is the frosting. A lot of times the frosting is just too artificial tasting, or it's too thick. It's just not a fan of that. So I think I'm going to go with pie, man, because pie, I can eat pretty much any kind of pie. Pecan pie is my stuff. Cherry pie is really good. And then I guess, would we if we're considering brownies cake, we could consider cobblers kind of a pie then, correct?
Cobblers are pie, yeah.
Okay, yeah, man, you can get with a peach cobbler with some ice cream. Oh yeah, my fat side is all about that. Yeah, I'm a pie man. Well, let's go with the pie.
Oh yeah. Joseph, thank you so much for doing this with me. Where can people find you and your things?
Thanks for having me, man. This was fun. You can find me on Buzzsprout or any of your main streaming platforms, Spotify. I'm not sure I'm on iTunes yet. I'm still trying to get through that, but I'm also on like Podcast Addict and what's the other one? Deezer, stuff like that. So just type in the Cognitive Discourse, and you can find us there. If you have any questions or you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at cognitive-discourse-podcast@gmail.com. There's no it's just cognitive-discourse-podcast@gmail.com. We also have a YouTube, so you can search us up on YouTube. Check out my band Among War. I am a solo artist. I'm also I have their stuff through DistroKid, so they put my stuff on all the streaming platforms. I push Spotify most out of all of them. But hey, man, if you want to go to iTunes and throw me 99 cents for a song, I'd appreciate it. I'm also on YouTube as well, so just type in Among War Band on YouTube, and you can find me on there. And On as far as everything else, I'm still working on a few things. The Cognitive Discourse does have an Instagram, so you can find us on there. I'm trying to be a little more active on that. I'm an old man, so trying to get better at using Instagram. But social media platforms are coming out as time progresses. I do have a Facebook group as well, so just type in the Cognitive Discourse at the Facebook group. That's the best way to kind of post your questions and kind of have that open dialogue. And if I like your question, I'll feature it on an episode.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for doing this with me. I'm Santiago Ramones.
And I'm Joseph Carrasco.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. I have an EP, a short album, that will be releasing on May 28th. It's 6 instrumental electronic tracks that didn't quite fit into a major release. It's called Sound Bites, and it'll be the first of many EPs that include stray songs, pieces, or recordings. Be on the lookout for that, and follow me on Instagram to stay up to date with all the stuff that I'm doing, both at bit.depth and at Santiago Ramones Music. If you like the podcast, leave comments on social media, leave reviews saying how much you like the podcast, and tell your friends about it. I really couldn't be doing this without you, and I'm super grateful to continue doing Bit Depth for this long. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting Bit Depth. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Love never fails. It's going to be okay. I might be wrong.